Star Trek, The Next Generation, Starfleet Academy, number 13, The Haunted Starship, Chapter 1. Bernardo O'Higgins Sanchez was in the main storage bay of the USS Benjamin Franklin, carefully squeezing his way around the stacks of closely packed cargo modules. The small, powerfully built Sanchez had just finished checking the contents of the modules against the master list on his pad, and he hadn't found a thing wrong. Starfleet Academy's refitting crews had done their usual thorough job. Inspecting the storage bay was the last item on Sanchez's checklist. Benjamin Franklin was ready to leave her berth at space dock. All she needed now was the members of her crew, and they'd be along shortly. Sanchez left the storage bay and entered the ship's turbolift. "Transporter room," he ordered, grabbing onto the handle that set the lift in motion. The short ride gave him a chance to think. He had already been aboard for hours, busier than he'd ever been in his life, making sure that everything was in order. For the next couple of days, this was going to be his ship and his show, and he wasn't going to let anything go wrong on this trip, not if he could help it. He smiled again. No more simulations, no more practice runs with a Starfleet officer by his side. This was the real thing. His first command. The turbolift came to a halt, and its doors slid open onto Deck 3. Ben's transporter room was only a few meters down the corridor, and Sanchez's communicator chirped for attention just as he entered the room. "Benjamin Franklin here," he said. "Franklin, this is McKenna," came a young woman's voice. "Ready to beam aboard." "Acknowledged. Stand by." Sanchez turned to the compact transporter console. Ben might well be the oldest ship in Starfleet still on active duty, but her single-position transporter, though small, was the very latest model. He touched the proper controls. "Energizing." Ch.1&2 McKenna appeared on the transporter pad. The tall, blonde cadet was carrying a small travel bag that contained her personal effects. "Reporting for duty, Captain Sanchez," she said formally. "Welcome aboard, Cadet McKenna." Sanchez replied in the same serious tone. Then he grinned. "I'm glad you're here, Ch.1&2, he said, delighted to see his friend again. "I wouldn't have missed this little safari of yours for anything, Bernie," she replied. "It's getting harder and harder to squeeze in a few days space-side, what with the study schedule you and I have to maintain as seniors." "You're not kidding," Sanchez said. "To tell you the truth, I've been developing a good case of cabin fever. A little trip out to the Asteroid Belt might be just what the doctor ordered." "Anything I need to know right off?" "No. I just finished eyeballing the supplies." He handed Ch.1&2 the pad. "Everything's fine. We're ready." "Good," Ch.1&2 said, looking at the display. After a moment, she said, "The manifest appears to be in order." "Spoken like a good first officer," Sanchez said. "I'm glad you concur. We're ready to go as soon as the others show up." "We'll crowd them aboard somehow," Ch.1&2 said dryly. She looked around. "I went over the specs, of course, but seeing things up close and personal is always different. The ship's small." "I prefer to think of her as snug," Sanchez said. "These old Daedalus-class ships weren't built very big, despite the fact that Ben was intended to carry a crew of more than 200. "That's what it says in the specs, all right," Ch.1&2 said. "I still don't believe it." "They didn't waste a lot of space on creature comforts in those days." Sanchez patted a bulkhead. "After all, these were the first starships ever built by Starfleet. But there's more than enough room for the 5 of us, even though 80% of the ship is shut down. Anyway, she's beautiful, isn't she?" Ch.1&2 grinned. "In love already, are we?" "I've waited a long time for this," Sanchez said, suddenly very serious. "I want it to go right." "It will, Bernie. Don't worry." The chirp came again. "Franklin here," Sanchez answered. "Trennock Son to beam up. Acknowledged. Energizing." A moment later, a blue-skinned Andorian cadet holding a rather large travel bag stood on the transporter pad. She glanced around and nodded. "Snug," she said with quiet approval. "Reporting aboard, Captain Sanchez." "Welcome aboard, Cadet San," Sanchez responded. You can drop your bag over in that corner for now. Thank you, sir. The Andorian set her bag down on the deck with a heavy thump. I may have overpacked. I understand you're at the top of your class in second year pre-med, Cadet San, Chauvin said. Congratulations. Trennick bowed her head in acknowledgement. Thank you, Cadet McKenna. For my part, I am pleased to make the acquaintance of one whose own standing among her fellow mathematics majors is so high. Ooh, I think we're bonding already, Chauvin grinned. For that, San, you may call me Chauvin. Then, Chauvin, please call me Trennick. The communicator chirped again. Ben Franklin here, Sanchez called. Hassan El-Dalal here, requesting transport aboard. Acknowledged, Sanchez said, energizing. When he arrived, Hassan looked at the other three. I am pleased to meet you all, he said, putting down a small bag and a compact toolkit. The third-year cadet from Earth spoke in precise, smooth tones. It seems to have grown a tad crowded in here. Should I wait out in the corridor? No need, Sanchez said. We'll manage. But it'd probably be a good idea if you checked your stuff outside. We've got one more warm body due aboard. The communicator called for attention again. Benjamin Franklin here, answered Sanchez. LaForge here, Franklin, came a voice. Ready to beam aboard. Stand by, Cadet LaForge, said Sanchez, fiddling with transporter controls. Just tweaking things here a bit. LaForge? Hassan asked. I have not met him yet, but I am looking forward to it. I understand he shows great promise. That's why he's here, said Sanchez, nodding as he worked. Commander Brown, no less, wants to see what LaForge can do in the field. Siobhan whistled. Whew. The head of Academy Command training himself, she said. Well, so that's why we drew a plebe. Right, Sanchez said. Special circumstances. Besides, like me, LaForge is a Starfleet brat. Knows his way around a Starship and protocol. Both his parents are still on active duty, as a matter of fact. That's got to be it. Franklin here, Cadet LaForge. Sorry for the delay. Energizing now. Geordi materialized on the transporter pad. He smiled and said, Hello, everyone. Glad to be aboard. Glad you could make it, Cadet LaForge, Sanchez said. You can drop your bag and toolkit just on the other side of that door. That's right, everyone. This is Geordi LaForge, first-year cadet and assistant engineer for this mission. Geordi, meet Siobhan McKenna. She's our first officer and navigator. Pleased to meet you, Geordi, she said, smiling. Likewise, Siobhan. Sanchez then indicated the Andorian. Trennick San here is our communications officer and medical officer. Greetings, Geordi, Trennick said. I look forward to serving with you. Why, thank you, Trennick, Geordi said. I feel the same way. Sanchez indicated Hassan. And this is Hassan El-Dalal, our chief engineer. You'll be working for him. With me, Hassan said. Welcome, Geordi. Pleased to meet you, Hassan. Sanchez spoke up. You've each been assigned separate quarters along officers' row. That's deck 2, forward on the ship. Your names are on the doors. Take 5 minutes to stow your gear and get settled, and then report to the officer's galley for a short briefing. The galley is also on deck 2. Just follow the signs. A galley of all things, Trennick said. Isn't that old-fashioned? I'll miss having a replicator available, even if it's only for a little while. We're going to be roughing it this trip, San, Sanchez told her. No creature comforts, packaged rations, recirculated air, canned water, just like the pioneers. You'll love it, trust me. Yes, sir, Trennick said. She looked a little unhappy. Right then, Sanchez said briskly. I want everyone in the galley in 4.5 minutes. Dismissed. Chapter 2. Geordi stood before a freshly painted door in officer's country on deck 2. There was a little sign with his name on it, just as promised. 2A-05, LaForge, G, Assistant Engineer, USS Benjamin Franklin, NCC 013. The sign made Geordi feel proud. He was officially part of the crew aboard a Starship. Geordi was determined to do as good a job as he could, to be better than he had ever been before. There were people who believed in him, his parents, his teachers, his friends, and he wanted to justify their belief. "Better hurry, Geordi," came a voice from up the corridor. "Only 3 minutes left until the briefing." "Eh?" Geordi turned, startled. It was Siobhan, standing at the door to her own quarters, which were closer to the bridge. She was about to go inside. "Oh," Geordi said. "Yeah, I was just thinking." "That's a commendable trait in an assistant engineer," she replied. "However, so is punctuality." "I won't be late," Geordi assured her. "Good," Siobhan told him. Her tone softened. "Your name does look pretty wonderful the first time you see it like that, doesn't it? Better get a move on, though." Geordi smiled. "Yes, ma'am," he said as the door slid aside for him. The interior lights came on automatically as Geordi entered the room. From the ship's drawings he had studied, Geordi knew that long ago this small room had been shared by Benjamin Franklin's chief weapons officer and its chief engineer. Geordi whistled softly. He thought it must have been pretty crowded in here back then. The second bunk had long since been removed, of course, but things still seemed tight. Geordi dropped his effects just inside the door. He looked around. Then he stood in the middle of the room and stretched his arms out to either side of him, as far as he could. He could almost touch the opposite walls. He grinned. "Things are pretty cramped, but that doesn't matter. They're officers' quarters, and they're mine." Geordi made a quick inspection of what would be his home for the next 2 days. There was a standard cadet study module, complete with a computer interface that would let him tap into Ben's library banks, or into the much bigger banks back at the academy. A small storage area for personal effects was set into the bulkhead next to the bunk. Off to the side was a very small room with a sonic shower, sink, and toilet. There were just 2 pieces of art on the flat gray walls, a rather impressive holograph of Benjamin Franklin in flight, and a small, dignified portrait of Benjamin Franklin, the American statesman and philosopher for whom the ship had been named. The picture of the ship had a single, bold word printed beneath it in the margin. Outstanding. Geordi wondered why someone had written that right on the holograph. Time was growing short. Geordi placed his personal bag in the storage bay and, taking his engineer's toolkit along, left his quarters and headed quickly down the corridor to the galley. All 5 members of Ben's complement seated themselves around the long table in the officers' galley. The lights had been dimmed by about half. A small hollow projector had been placed in the center of the table, and its emitter was aimed at the smooth, gunmetal gray ceiling. As Sanchez began working the hollow projector controls, the 4 others looked up. Suddenly, the ceiling went dead black, and thousands of stars appeared. It looked as if a giant hand had peeled Ben's hull like a banana, exposing the galley to raw space. Even though Geordi knew better, the picture above him looked so real that he shivered in spite of himself. "Looks cold out there." Geordi hoped no one else had noticed him shiver. He didn't want to look foolish in front of his shipmates. The stars above them began to move from left to right and then down, at first slowly and then more quickly. It was as if Ben were somehow doing a cartwheel despite still being tied firmly to her berth in space dock. Siobhan gripped the edge of the table with her right hand as if to keep from falling out of her chair. "I feel a bit dizzy," Hassan admitted. Sanchez grinned. "So do I, a little, and I'm the one who's running this thing. The hollow projector is skewing around to the part of space I want us to look at. I have to keep telling myself that the rolling of the ship is only an optical illusion, but it doesn't do much good. Here we go." The picture above them stopped moving. Then it zoomed in to reveal a long, thick line of floating rocks and boulders of various sizes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sanchez announced, "I give you the Asteroid Belt, or rather a very small segment of it. The area you're looking at is going to be our home over the next couple of days. Although there are some huge gaps around the belt, much of our sector is relatively thick with asteroids, so we'll have plenty of them to study. Cadet McKenna, please continue." "As you already know," Siobhan said, "we'll be doing a routine mapping survey of our assigned sector of the belt. Our sensors will automatically gather data on every asteroid we encounter, and we can do special studies of any we find to be particularly interesting. The ship will be put on autopilot and will fly a crisscrossing looping pattern around and through our sector. This will give us maximum coverage." Will anyone be going outside? Trennick asked. Yes, Siobhan replied. We'll be gathering mineral samples from the more interesting asteroids for analysis back at the Academy. We'll also be placing navigational beacons on some of the bigger rocks out there, so their orbits can be monitored by Starfleet. Is there a watch schedule? Hassan inquired. I'll have one posted before lunch, Siobhan replied. Anything else? No? All right, thanks for your attention. Thank you, number one, Sanchez said. LaForge, why don't you enlighten us a bit about the belt? Geordi cleared his throat. He'd studied up on this for the last week. Sir, he said, the local asteroid belt is typical of similar structures found in a small number of other star systems. Most of the belt lies in an orbit roughly 400 million kilometers from the Sun, between the orbits of the planets Mars and Jupiter. How many asteroids are there? Asked Sanchez. Geordi quoted his Academy textbook from memory. There are an estimated 1 billion asteroids of significant size in the belt, he recited, and fewer than 1 in 10,000 has been cataloged. The asteroids range in size from the biggest one, which is named Ceres, and is more than 1,000 kilometers in diameter, to big rocks just a meter across. Geordi held his hands that far apart. Anything smaller than this doesn't really count. You'd think it did if one came crashing through your hull, Siobhan observed. Those puppies travel fast. Nothing like that will happen to us, Sanchez reassured him. The ship is shielded. Besides, the belt just isn't that dangerous. Those rocks out there aren't stacked together like some big stone fence in space. They're sometimes hundreds of kilometers apart. Even the 20th century Pioneer and Voyager probes made it through the belt without harm, and they didn't have any shields at all. The belt is very interesting to me, Trennick said. I'm glad to be going there. Asteroid belts are relatively rare, you know. We certainly have nothing like this back home in our local star group. The belt is so big that it's largely unexplored, Sanchez reminded him. There was a time, years ago, when thousands of miners from Earth lived and worked in the belt. It contains a vast amount of raw materials, especially metals, which were pretty easy to get to with old-fashioned methods. We don't have to mine for those materials anymore, thanks to replicators, so no one lives in the belt now. A few researchers stop by every so often. Once in a while, people like us do too. It does look pretty lonely out there, Siobhan observed. I'd like to have seen the belt back in the early days. They say Ceresville used to be quite a place before it became a ghost town. It was supposed to be a lot like the ancient West. I'm sorry, Trennick interrupted, puzzled. A ghost town? You mean a settlement actually inhabited by spirits of the dead? I find that a bit hard to believe. So would I, Siobhan replied. It's just an Earth term for a deserted town, a place no one's lived in for many years. Ceresville was the biggest settlement in the belt when the miners were here. No one lives there now, though, and that's all I meant. There's no such things as ghosts. There are a lot of stories, though, Geordi said. For instance, Sanchez held up a hand. I'm as interested in this sort of thing as the next person, he said, but now's not the time. LaForge, use the study module in your quarters to brief yourself on the history of this ship and the history of the belt, with special attention to the history of Ceresville. Following dinner tonight, you'll give the rest of us a report summarizing your findings. Keep in mind that you may discover the two histories have something in common. Aye, sir, Geordi said. He didn't mind the extra research. History, especially Starfleet history, fascinated him. Hassan was gazing at the asteroids pictured above him. Some say the asteroids are a planet that was never born, he said. Excuse me, Hassan? Sanchez asked. I beg your pardon, sir, the engineer apologized. I was referring to the prevailing theory of how the belt came to be. Oh, well, why not remind all of us about it? Of course, sir, Hassan said. Long ago, in the 18th century, Earth mathematicians calculated that there should be a planet located between Mars and Jupiter. Of course, everyone thought there was nothing there, but astronomers began to look more closely with their telescopes anyway, just in case. That is when the largest asteroids were discovered. Later, scientists came to believe that the presence of Jupiter, the largest planet in Earth's star system, actually kept a planet that was supposed to be there from forming. And how might that have happened? Sanchez prompted. The material that was supposed to gather together to build the planet kept getting dragged apart by Jupiter's vast gravity field, Hassan answered. As a result, the belt is just a lot of wreckage and trash that never managed to put itself together. The asteroids are little pieces of what might once have become a planet, but now can never be. That is really quite poetic, Trennick said. Quite sad as well. A stillborn planet. There used to be other theories too, Siobhan chimed in. All wrong, of course. One had it that a planet actually did form, that it exploded for some unknown reason. Some people even believed the planet was blown apart during an attack by aliens, but just which aliens nobody ever said. Silly. Sanchez nodded. The belt is an interesting enough place as it is. We could explore it for the next 1,000,000 years and still not know all there is to know about it. Suddenly he grinned. As far as I'm concerned, that makes it the perfect place to spend the weekend. Hear, hear, chimed in Siobhan. You'd never think that something so close to home could be so exotic and remain so unknown. The belt is not very close to my home, Trennick said softly, but that should make it even more of an adventure, don't you think? That it should, Sanchez agreed firmly. All right, then. Attention to orders. Communications officer. You'll handle getting our final clearance from Space Dock Control. Aye, sir, Trennick acknowledged. Engineering. I'm going to want 3/4 impulse from here all the way to the belt. Aye, sir, Hassan answered for both him and Geordi. We shall be ready. Good. First officer, I'll want a direct course to our assigned sector. Siobhan closed her eyes for a moment as she did a rough calculation of the course in her head. The course and speed you've ordered will put us at our destination a bit more than 20 minutes after we leave Space Dock, she said. Is that acceptable, Captain? With that word, Sanchez seemed to stand a little taller. He nodded. That will do fine, number 1, he said firmly. All hands report to your stations. Begin departure routine. I want to be ready to clear Space Dock not later than 10 minutes from now.